Good morning and blessings. Welcome to day 18 of the Do You Rules live stream experience, where we are marching towards a gazillion hours of self improvement. Oh man, we're trying to get to 1,000 at least. Maybe you're trying to get to 100. Maybe you're on day one. Maybe you're 1,000 days already straight and you're listening to me like, who the hell are you and where are you going? Either way, oh, it's Saturday and it's time to reflect. I came on a few minutes later than I normally would because I was writing some things down. And I've already started the reflection period, which ironically makes me nervous and uncomfortable from the perspective of I feel like I've already gone through this episode, but things that happen in the mind, and I'm gonna write that down. I want to talk about this, happen so much faster than they do in reality. And I want to talk about that. The idea that I've already visualized sort of how this is going to go and then what that does to the mind in a lot of different ways. But again, it is Saturday. Before we get into the specifics, I got my little notes. Take my notes here. Got some notes. We got some notes. Gonna get into the mind of cliche Jeff. It's a dirty place to be, but we're gonna have fun with it on Saturday because why else would we be here? Chapstick, check. Water, check. Oh, I just spilled a little bit. What time is it? It sure is. It sure is. And a beautiful, beautiful time to be alive because, well, why wouldn't any time to be alive be beautiful? Excuse me while I wipe up. It's the beauty of live, right? It's like this is really live. Like this is really happening right now. Oh God. Sometimes I think we go a little delirious. At least I do. Part of what we'll talk about with reflection is I believe it's Cleotis is how you say it. One of the first philosophers on Stoicism. I learned that I think it's Zeno was the very first Stoicism believer and creator. And then Cleotis, I hope I'm saying it right. I just learned this yesterday. Was the second one. And he was known for doing something that I've been doing that made me feel comfortable about doing it. And I'll get to the big reveal of what that is later in the episode to keep this suspenseful, at least for myself. But it is Saturday. I'm settling into my seat, settling into my soul, settling into my flow, which is ironic because I've already done that, I believe, spiritually, which is why I start with meditation. But coming to consciousness and reality about where I'm at, which we'll also talk about, takes a little while. So let's do this for formalities as far as me trying to prove to you with data, which I always wonder how could you really quantify this without seeing it? I'm putting forth 1,000 hours. I'm showing you a spreadsheet of work. Again, I have an app that tracks my meditation, my prayer, and my strength training and my cardio sessions, both running and high intensity. So I can easily show that. And I believe it's going to amount to something around the 600 hours. How do you really know I'm putting in then the 4 to 5 to 600 hours of content creation? Part of it is I do these episodes and let me set a timer for 5 a.m. I'm doing at least 30 minutes here a day. I do post recorded sessions, which a lot of times are anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. If you're not into the content creation space, it could take hours to put together a video that comes out to be 10 to 15 minutes. And until you go through it, you don't realize it. It's just like with any project in business or work. A lot of times you'll negotiate, I'm going to install this application and get this set of services, and you'll pay for professional service hours, and they'll be like, we're gonna add 5,000 hours of professional services, but we're gonna get this project done in 3 months. And you start doing the math, like where are these 5,000 hours? Are we ever gonna have a break? But when you start to think about how many resources are assigned and that every resource assigned is taking up time, and so whenever they put in an hour of work, think of it like this. I always say it like this, which is why I'm big on meetings. If you have a meeting with 10 people and every one of those people make $100 an hour, first of all, that's 10 hours of work right there. 10 people putting in 1 hour is 10 hours of work because you have 10 resources applied. If they all make $100 an hour, it's 10 times 100, right? Which easy math says is $1,000. So if you get on a call for an hour with 10 people who make $100, the efficiency of that hour I always question because it just cost the business $1,000, right? When you start thinking of things this way, at least the way I think of things this way, it starts to put things into more context and perspective. All right, we flow in, we flow in, we flow in, rhythms and patterns. I talked about that a lot. I posted something about rhythms and patterns. I want to create an episode about rhythms and patterns. One of the things I learned about my life to make it more succinct and profitable for me in a way that makes me feel good about my improvement journey is realizing my own rhythms and patterns and habits. And I believe a lot of these things you'll learn it as you read it, but depending on if you just go for it, the way I kind of sort of went for it spiritually, they reveal themselves to you, and then it's almost like that's how God starts to confirm with you, which is another way that I'll talk about this book that I'm reading in Clearthese, how that realization struck me yesterday. You start to sort of you experience these things in life. You experience these things as you move towards spirituality. You question it because you don't really know what's happening, and then you read that somebody else kind of sort of did it, and you're like, "Oh, yep, it's confirmation and validation." That's great. All right, formalities. I know everybody loves the screen. Effectively, 18 days in, which a lot of the reflection is pace, right? I had to remind myself yesterday to be careful with pace. 48 hours of content creation is sensational, it's phenomenal. But the reality of what that does to me is it puts a lot of pressure on me emotionally. It puts a lot of stress on me physically. It puts a lot of stress on me in my life. And if I'm not careful, because I know I like to get into sort of an addictive rhythm. When I find something I like to do it over and over and over. I've proved that with alcohol and video games and everything. Even when I was playing sports, got into sports, even with fantasy, I would join like 19 fantasy football teams. Why would you? I get it. I want to check it all. I want to be in it all the time. And so in that way, it's very beneficial because I know myself to be someone who will indulge and get deep, 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 deep into it. I think part of my, I don't know if it's an insecurity, but one of the ways I resolve in myself the ability to feel confident is I over inundate myself with knowledge to ensure that I don't look stupid. I don't know how else to put it. I don't like the idea of being pulled out onto the carpet. I'll tell you like this, in the technology space, information technology, one of my first bosses, I think this is one of the things that are deep in my soul. He said to me one time, there was a staff of 500 people. Imagine this, 500 people. And imagine how the power of words hit you. He said, I guarantee you, you're the least technical person in this entire 500 person organization. That'll hurt you. And so I went on to that. That's part of what spurred my journey towards a lot of the certifications I got, because although I don't have a formal college degree, I did pursue some certifications that helped elevate me. I got about 4 of them that probably amount to at least an associate's, relative and respectful. I digress because I don't want to start to get into tangential about school and all that stuff that comes along with it and my beliefs. That's a conversation for another day. I want to stick here to what I was going to do for formality. If I want to get to 1,250 hours of self improvement for me for this year, the journey towards 1,000 hours, there's 12 months in a year. I got to put in at least 100 hours per month. I've already put in 91 hours. This is also, of course, maybe not so, of course, it's somewhat rounded. I rounded up. I easily get 3 hours of content creation in this way, right? I do this for 30, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, 4:15 to 5 o'clock. And even if I'm not recording, like I took the first 15 minutes after I prayed and I meditated and I hydrated to write down some notes. That's content creation. I'm writing. I'm thinking about what I'm going to be doing. The way that I pray and meditate almost all day because it's in me, I feel like I'm constantly creating. I'm gonna get to that Clearthes thing to make it make sense. I could probably say I'm creating 24 hours a day. Yo, dude, you man, let me tell you this before I go back into this. I am so I am so is fixated the word obsessed, hyper aware, super conscious. I am very much into this content creation thing. Surprise. What does that mean relative? For you, probably nothing specific to who you are, but it can mean everything in this way to you and who you are. I cannot stop thinking about content creation to the point where I question the health of it. I question it because that's part of being alone. We get tangential, but we got time today. It's Saturday. We're reflecting. Man, the energy and effort and the reality that this requires a massive amount of energy and effort. It's almost like it doesn't stop, and I can't even click pause. I can assure you, listen to what I'm trying to tell you, listen to what I'm trying to express, and the power of consciousness that I'm learning. I believe this is true, and I think anybody can essentially get to this level. This is why I talk about, and I said it yesterday, singularly focused. Your mindset is geared towards one direction, which opens you up to a lot of realities, right? And I talk about if you're only looking in one direction, then you can't see everything else around you. So to realize and come to the humility that you're ignorant to everything else that's going around you. If I'm only looking this way, it's good. Go there. Don't stop going this way. But don't get arrogant and pompous and get too high about because you're going this way. The way I talked about, I used to be the least technical person. When I got my 4 certifications, I suddenly became in the top 1% and I got promoted. I got multiple promotions in a row. And ironically, the person who called me the least technical, I wound up taking his team. I've done some pretty dope things professionally that I don't know that a lot of people would necessarily appreciate unless I went into detail. And I know certainly a lot of people don't experience because I've been in the professional space long enough to know that you don't get to where I get to without a certain level of validity around. Like people in my space have MBAs and doctorates. And I also, anyway, that's not where I want to go. That's not where I want to go. I want to be respectful. If you're looking this way, there's a lot going on around you you don't know. That's cool because you can't let it block you from continuing to go this way, right? So you can only see what you're looking at. That's cool. You just want to be here. I'm here. When you start to really just bulldoze your way in the direction you're looking to go, forget everything else you can't see. It's important because you want to, again, humble yourself and be mindful that this world is greater and bigger than you and that there's just some things you cannot do. And that's also a sacrifice. When I move in the direction of content creation only, I'm sacrificing a lot of other things I could be doing. I could also argue that that is discipline, that is the ability to be self-centered and focused and self-actualized, but it comes with sacrifice. It comes with commitment and consistency that hurts, right? It hurts. And here's what essentially I'm driving towards. I could argue that I'm in the content creation space 24/7. 24/7 because my thoughts are non-stop. I am at work thinking about content creation. I am praying to God thinking about content creation. I'm going for my runs thinking about content creation. I'm lifting the weights thinking about content creation. I'm going through all my relationships. Even now, I was talking about a conversation I had with one of my boys recently. I see it as an opportunity to, when I'm speaking, and I don't care if it's a business meeting, I don't care if it's a phone call with a friend, I don't care if it's to my wife. It's almost as if I'm always rehearsing for the stage. Not specifically like I'm here to influence, because yes, I'm here to influence. But what I'm saying is this: I need to be this person at all times because I'm the same person at all times, which means that I'm always practicing how I speak. I'm always practicing inflection. I'm always practicing my vocabulary. I'm always practicing my delivery. I'm always practicing my message. I'm always practicing my mode and operation. I'm always the same person. And I believe that you believe that this thing is true for everybody, but I don't think so. I don't think so. At least not in this way. In any event, I'm so locked in and dialed in on this person that I am and have become. And I'm so committed to being this person at all times that I don't want to stop ever. This is me. This is the essence. This is God in absolute flow and in the beauty of creation, because we all have the power to create. That be careful what you wish for with respect to is it never gets turned off. I put myself to sleep. It's like I know I'm gonna go live in the morning. My wind down, my from 8 to 9 o'clock, which is I like to try to be in bed no later than 9 o'clock. It doesn't always happen. My point is this: I start to go through the content that I've already gone through for the day. I open up one of my apps and I chop up some of my content to start creating reels. I start to give myself constructive criticism and feedback. I look at again what I'm doing, my posture, my modes, what my face looks like, what the energy I appear to be. I start to assess and evaluate. Why? Because I'm in this mode. But what goes even deeper, as far as I feel like I'm always content creating, is this. As I talked about this before. It's like counting sheep. I talk myself into sleep in as many affirming ways as possible. I talk about the harmony and the synchronicity of ensuring that my body is flowing and healthy, the gratitude for a healthy body, the gratitude for my connection to God, the gratitude for my life. And then immediately I transition to talking myself into tomorrow we got to get busy. Assuming we get it tomorrow. I might not wake up. That's the reality. But the likelihood too is that the more I take care of myself, I increase my chances of waking up. The only thing that can really stop me is really old age. And I'm learning that people are living to 120. So if I'm 43, going to be 44, I got mad time. 120 is my target. I've been saying this now for a little while. If it is, I got about 75, 76 more years. At least that's what I'm planning for. And if I go tonight, whatever. I'm going to go out there like I want to go out, which is cool. In any event, the biggest driving force that I'm starting to realize and appreciate is that as I drift off into my subconscious state, into dream state, when I fall the fuck asleep, I don't even, and I talked about the other day that I'm having difficulty with my sleep. What I've learned about my difficulty with my sleep as I flow into this mode, and I absolutely think about nothing else but what I want to do, how I want to do it, and what I want to be, and the results I want to see, is that it's never off. And so I feel myself, hear what I'm saying, hear what I'm saying. I hear myself while I'm sleeping. I still hear myself talking. I feel my subconscious working. I feel myself processing. I feel myself still creating. I feel myself still organizing. I feel myself still focusing. I feel myself strategizing and being tactical about who I still need to be. I feel my subconscious being fed by my conscious. I know how this sounds. I think I know how this sounds. Maybe I won't know how it sounds, so I'll play this back. But the power of what I'm learning about the self-improvement process, the journey towards anything you think you want to do in your life, the singular focus, the obsessiveness that comes with it, whether it's healthy or not. I don't even know if it's healthy. I don't know. I don't remember anymore what it was like to not be this way. So all I know how to do is to continue to be this way. It's fucking crazy. And so and we're talking about reflecting. We're talking about reflecting. That's the biggest thing I reflected on. I reflected on a lot of other things. And, we'll get into it when I open up my notes. but I can't, and I don't want to. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm not, I'm not worried. Maybe I'm worried. I don't, listen, I don't know the right emotional context to put it in, or the right words. I don't want to, because I don't want to seem ungrateful, and I don't want to break from this pattern. I like where I'm going. I have no qualms with it. I'm just sharing my journey to hopefully say this is where you. And this is part of what I'm gonna talk about later. Who I do this for? I do it for me. Why do I do it for me? I gotta get into that a little bit later. But I could argue that I never stop creating, which is what I want. If God gave me the ability in his image to have the same material and ability and consciousness to go create, I never want to stop creating. So I take it with me to sleep. And that's powerful because you're subconscious. We're asleep at least, unless you're starting to get like me and you're averaging about 6 hours of sleep. Let's just say it's 8 hours. And what I was reading that helped me, because I got a little, you start to get a little nervous. Am I doing this wrong? Like I said, I don't have no mentors or coaches side, or people driving me towards a certain path. I mean, I watch my content, I get inspiration, sure. The only person that's really directing me is God. So sometimes because I don't have and we need that reinforcement. You need somebody to kind of support you to say, yo, you're not going crazy. I don't have that. It's just me. It's just me. I don't, a lot of and I'm not disagreeing with this. They talk about your support system and your circle. One of the episodes I'm creating that I'll get into later, I'm gonna start writing. I was writing it yesterday. Is about show me your friends. I show you your future. You are the result of the five closest people you're around. The closest person I'm around is God, and ensuring that I continue to have that relationship manifest in the way that is most fruitful for me. I got to pay strict attention to the messages that are being delivered to me. They're not always easy to see. They're not always, because you don't always just see them. You hear them, you feel them, you taste them, you touch them, you sense them, right? And becoming in tune and harmonizing with mind, body, and spirit and God, it's crazy to me from my experience. Because right, the essence to be in constant connection, like, yo, God, you got me. I'm always, you got me. You got me. You got me. You got me. I don't pray for anything specific as far as what do I want to make manifest in richness as far as material, although I want it, because you should visualize. I'm not telling you don't do that. But when I ask God for help, it's more like, yo, just don't let me fall off path. Redirect me. It's almost like give me a knuckle sandwich every now and again. Yo, stay on path. Don't deviate. Yo, you said you were gonna do this. Keep doing it, right? I said it the other day in one of my shorts. I don't want to be prevented from the fall. Let me fall. I'm good with falling, but every now and again, reach your hand back out and let me know I'm good and pull me back up. Just let me know I'm good. That's a lot of what I ask for God. Am I good? Am I doing it right? Not even am I doing it right, but keep me honest. Keep me honest. Keep me honest. Provide me your power of love, right? I believe God will always provide you love so long as you force not the word. If you focus, if a lot of what we do to create is an emotional experience, right? Because we're trying to feel, we're trying to feel, we're trying to feel, we're trying to feel this life thing. I will, I will return love to God in return for love from God, because that's how I believe it works. If you want to feel love from God, you got to continuously pour love into God, and God will return love to you. In that way, I believe there's an indifference. God is not necessarily telling you, you don't got to love on me. You don't got to necessarily have any emotion towards me. But what you give me, I will give you with no bias. That's the power of free will. God is going to say, what do you want to give to me? What do you want to give to me? How do you want to do it? Go will yourself in a direction. I'll be there for you. No bias, no judgment. I don't believe God judges. God just says, go, flow. I'll be there. I got you. I'll return it exactly as you see it, exactly as you feel it, exactly as you want it. Here, boom. So in that way, if I can believe it that strongly, I say, yo, I want nothing but love from God as much as I can. I want to feel that as much as I can. So I provide it. I provide it. I work for it. I strive for it, and I receive it in return. That's the essence, right? So back to my long-winded, making a short story very long and trying to take a long story to shorten it. I I feel myself thinking while I'm sleeping. I feel myself creating while I'm sleeping. It's almost like I'm still awake while I'm sleeping. No, that's not the way. It's like I'm still conscious while I'm sleeping. And it's funny. I learned that one of the things that your brain, it sends a paralyzing signal to your physical body. So in that way, because maybe it's because I know that and I'm tricking myself, right? I know that I can't, I could, because I could, I've learned to pull myself out of dreams because there's some dreams you have and you're like, yo, this gotta stop. I know you've had those dreams, right? When you're in a dream and you're like, yo, this is too much. I can't take it. And it's usually fear. It's usually fear. You don't usually stop yourself when things are going good. But when I get into a really, really fearful state, I'm like, yo, you gotta wake up. You gotta wake up. But in that way, when I can feel myself sort of in consciousness, which would really be the subconscious, which is the most powerful tool we have. Of that's the subconscious. Even if you look up the data on how the subconscious work, if you think relative to how it moves, the speed at which the subconscious moves is infinitely ahead of how your conscious moves, which is why you don't want to always be in conscious thought. Also, your mode and consciousness when you're awake and alert is slower than when you're just flowing. Your subconscious is, it's almost like a sprinter versus a jogger. Your conscious is sort of like a jogger. It runs, it moves at a good pace, it does some great things to you. And then when it feeds the subconscious is like boom. It's moving way faster. And so in that world, I feel myself in my physically paralyzed state. Like I can't move my physical body. I know I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm definitely sleeping. But I can is the word here. I can feel myself. I can feel myself while I'm sleeping. And so in the same way I talk myself to sleep, in the same way I talk myself to sleep. Have you clicked unsubscribe yet? Are you like, yo, this dude is out of his mind? The same way I can hear myself sleep and I talk myself into sleep. As soon as I wake up, it's like I never stopped talking. It's like I never stopped talking. Like I never stopped creating. Like I never stopped moving. It's crazy. I've never felt this way in my life. So in that way, when I talk about, I got tangential why. I think a lot of it too is trying to prove because I think if there's one thing I don't want to ever be again because I've been it, I don't ever want to be a liar again. I've lied enough, and I was reading something about. I'm into the Stoicism book right now. I love philosophy. Stoicism is built a lot around philosophy. I love faith. I love God. I love the way people we talk about what my priorities are. That's what I love to read. It inspires me the way I can't even put into words. Really, it's a pure bliss of love to think about reading what other people are thinking about and their relationship to God and universe creation and the power of man and how to live life, how to live life as ethically as possible. And one of the reasons, again, I'm insecure with my truth is that because I feel like I've lived a lie for so long that I get very uncomfortable that I just don't want to be a liar anymore. And I know how to live a truth, but I get very uncomfortable that, the 2.0 Jeff, and I put out an episode that's coming up soon, the part two you, is so much different than the part one me. So much so too that I get nervous seeing people who used to know me because they wouldn't understand who I am right now, but I'm still the same person. Isn't that crazy? I'm so much different, but I'm still the same. I have, look, I can't neglect who I used to be. As much as I would want to change a lot of what I used to be and a lot of what I used to do and a lot of what I missed, and a lot of the pain that's come with the experience of life, it's there. It's there. It's also what drives me, inspires me, and keeps me honest. Keeps me honest is to live honestly is to appreciate that I could lie if I wanted to. To be truthful is to understand and appreciate that I could speak in a lot of falsehoods. Right? I can't, it's the polarities of life. Truth for me cannot exist in the way I want it to exist without knowing that I can be a liar. I don't pretend like it doesn't pull on me. I don't try to it's not so much resisting that I embrace that demon. I look at him straight up and straight on. And sometimes, yes, I can feel like an imposter. I can feel like, and maybe you feel me, right? And I think that's a lot of what stops us. But I always rationalize it in this way. Imagine that you're living this life in this way that you have an epiphany, whatever it is. You have your meeting and your intervention from God. Something stops you and you're like, yo, boom. I think all of us have that moment. And it's like this inflection point, and it could be a breaking point because you say, I don't want to keep doing this. I got to keep going this way. And the move from here to there, it's not that you can't do it, but it starts to feel false. It starts to feel fake. You can feel like an imposter because all of this that you used to be feels so much realer. The lie, and in that way, you're living a lie anyway. If you keep living as somebody you don't want to live as, and you keep doing something you don't want to do, I would argue that you're lying either way. And if your lie is about you being a liar and untruthful all the time, well, you're just a truth about a lie, which is a lie anyway. You get where I'm going with that? Think about it. So in that way, part of what I was reading is that sometimes a liar will lie about his lies. So does that mean that that person at some point is truthful? There's this antagonistic nature to philosophy and stoicism and words and God and process and free will that if you start to play with it, you can easily come up with contradictory terms or analogies or thoughts to everything because that's just life. That's just life. But either way, choose a path. Stay on that path. Don't deviate. And what's the worst that could happen? I think, like the book says, seek and thee shall find. What are you seeking? I'll go back to the spreadsheet for a moment just for a level of balance and reflection to see how we're making progress. I think making progress is dope. So if we could see, and you could believe me, oh God, you think about 18 days, I've gotten 15 hours of strength training. Sometimes my strength training is an hour. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. Sometimes I take days off, right? Sometimes you go a little harder in the gym. I am, as I reflect, trying to get more towards 45 to 60-minute workouts. One of the things I reflected on that I thought was important is where's my prioritization for strength? I really want to achieve hypertrophy, which is the biggest goal for me. And I want to get stronger. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to be a fitness influencer. I've said this before. And I don't want to be Mr. Olympia. And so in that way, I do believe in sort of an 80-20 rule with life as far as how much of a priority is this. And when I determine level of priority, it determines how much time I put into it. But when I'm putting time into it, it's prioritized and I do it as hard as I can. But I can get what I'm looking for from strength training between 45 and 60 minutes. I have to be more efficient. It maybe means I have to lessen I talked about I want to get stronger, but it might mean if I want to reach hypertrophy, the reality is you want to sort of ensure that you're working out multiple times a week on the same muscle group and you're getting between 10 and 20 sets in. And the bare minimum to get per week per muscle group is 10 sets, which means that I can do sets of 5 on a muscle group, let's say my quads. As long as I get 5 sets per workout and I work out twice per week on that muscle group, I'll achieve hypertrophy. Why is that important? Well, sometimes I would do 10 sets per session and get to that 20. Sometimes I would do 15, which you start to learn is overtraining. I certainly don't want to overtrain. I've also learned that like I'm doing now with content creation, when I first started my strength journey, I try to get it all back in the first year. These get this body in 30, 60, 90. There's also a reality to if you're 20, you could probably blow up and get that Superman body quick. When you're 40, 41, 42, 43 in your 40s, because of the way your testosterone works and because of the limitations of the body, because you've been beating it up for so long, it takes a little while to build. So what is your real goal? Yes, I feel good about when I take my shirt off. I like building muscle. Yes, it takes longer. Yes, I've learned to be more patient, but also in the same way that strength training is my priority when I'm focusing on strength training, it's not my overall goal to be the strongest human in the world. So I don't want to overtrain because overtraining makes me physically tired, which makes me mentally tired. And it sucks to be like, yo, I'm going to Target or to the market or to wherever I'm going with Costco with the wife and the kids, and I got to carry all the bags and I'm mad sore. Now, you still get sore. Delayed onset muscle fatigue is real. Like right now, I'm dreading. Oh, look, it's 5 o'clock. We're gonna talk some more. We're gonna talk some more. I got time today. It's a beautiful day. God bless everybody who's here, who decides to come here. God bless everybody who doesn't anyway. It is what it is. It's your life. Do what you want to do. Whatever. I'm doing me the way I want to do me. And, and so in that way, I want the balance. I want to get stronger, but I don't want to overtax myself. I want to get stronger, but I don't want to limit my time in other areas. So I realized that I can get hypertrophy in 45 to 60 minutes. I also realized it might require me to break up some of my muscle groups. Maybe I just do back. I don't do back, tries, and buys. Maybe I do a separate day just for arms to get my shoulders, my triceps, my biceps, my chest, my legs. And I'm not here to influence you on what I think you should specifically do. It goes back to the do you rules. What is your goal and your targets? I don't need to emulate the exact workout routine of Arnold Schwarzenegger because that's not my goal. If I did that, I'd be putting in this much time on my body, right? 2 to 3 hours a day. You might think that's outrageous. That's how you get to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's how you win. That's how you win trophies and medals, and you become the best in the world at that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be healthy. There's a standard and a minimum for health. I believe I exceed that. 30 minutes of cardio on average a day, that's good heart health. 60 minutes of strength training, 45 to 60, reaching hypertrophy, at least 5 to 10 sets per week to ensure you're doing multiple iterations of your workout per week. That's perfect. I guess where I need to be. Running, it's become a lot of times too. I'll be halfway through my run and I'll record a reel. I'm putting in 15 to 20 minutes. My runs go from, I wound up coming back in an hour because I took 30 minutes to record somewhere. I do it for effect. I like to go outside in the morning and record. It's part of who I am. It's part of the message I want to promote, and it makes me feel good. So I do that. That's adding to my content creation. In any event, the two biggest areas for me have to be here. I can't forget the knowledge and the research because I have to make myself wiser, because I have to make myself more valuable to myself. The more I make myself more valuable to myself, the more valuable I am to you. And that's ultimately what this comes down to. I wrote it in my book, and I'm going to get to it in a minute. I think, hopefully I get into what's in my notes here. I don't know. I still don't know where I'm going to go with this. I just flow, right? The more I learn for myself and the more I'm able to practice on myself and the more I'm able to see what happens to myself, the more I'm able to share it. And maybe it helps you. Maybe it doesn't. It helps me. But it also keeps me honest about who I believe I need to be. And I don't want to, again, deviate from who I believe I need to be. And in order for me to be who I need to be, I need to do a lot of research. I need to do a lot of diligence. I got to read. I got to watch. I signed up for a course, a free course on Western philosophy. I think it's about an 8 to 12 hour course. And it's an introduction. I want to learn these things. I want to understand these things. I want to continue also to explore on my own. I talked about prayer and meditation. This is direct contact and access to God in the sense of, I believe you got to be still and quiet and prioritized. I always prioritize God. In the same way that I fall asleep thinking about content creation, I fall asleep thinking about God. I've already built in rhythms and patterns and routines to always check in with God. I always check in with God. I always check in with God. Yo, God, how you doing? Have you asked God? You ever thought about that too? When's the last time you asked God, how is God doing? I'm just saying. You might think that's crazy. Like, God is not going to respond to you. God's not going to tell you, hey, Jeff, I'm doing great. Okay. Okay. I don't think you know God the way I do if you think that that's true. God speaks. God speaks. God speaks with all because God is all. Take a look around you. Take a look at the impact you're having on life. Take a look at the impact life is having on you. That's all God. Take a look at your relationships. Take a look at your emotional experience. If you want to, people talk about serving God. This is why I think, let me get back over here. I'm about to get tangential again. People talk about the idea and the concept of, I want to serve God and I want to make sure that I give back to Creator and all this good stuff. All right, I challenge you to do that to the maximum of your ability. I was thinking about this the other day. If you believe you want to serve God, you believe if you're like, yo, I want to serve God, and I'm careful with my words. I don't know that God wants you to worship, serve. Again, I don't think God has an emotional opinion on what you do. That's why you got free will. I don't believe that God says His free will, do it exactly how I told you. Nope. I believe God said, here's free will. You have the power in you to create the way I create. I is all, the isness of God, the beauty and the essence of the world. And yes, I planted a seed in you. Go grow it. And I also believe that all of the qualities you see in people in varying degrees, whether they're introverted or extroverted, whether they're charismatic or a little somewhat, awkward, but yet still have, they're energetic or they're stoic or they're expressive, whatever it is you see, the potentiality of all that exists in you. It's just a matter of, do you want to channel it? Can you channel that energy, that vibe, that frequency? And then can you do it often enough until it becomes a strength? But if you want to serve God, if you're like, yo, I'm going to do whatever I can to ensure that God's beautiful earth, which is bigger than the earth, the universe, the essence of God is taken care of. The very first place to start, the very first way you can impact God is guess through where? Through you. That's why I believe in self-improvement more than anything. Until you're settled in you and you take care of the God in you, how could you take care of the God anywhere else? Until you are receiving of the God in you, how could you receive God outside of yourself? Until you love the God in you, how could you love the God everywhere? And I would also argue that if you're not loving on yourself to the point where, relative, look, we it's hard today. I bought ice cream and Chips Ahoy's. I bought a whole lot of chocolate yesterday because I felt the need to kind of sort of satisfy my weakness in that way. We go through it. The flesh sometimes wins, at least for me. It just does. I haven't fully conquered it. Do I want to? I believe so. I'm patient. Do I want to reach a point where I never eat ice cream again? I don't know. I haven't made a determination. Ice cream tastes good. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is this. If you're overloading yourself with unhealthy things physically, if you're overloading yourself with unhealthy things mentally, then you're overloading yourself with unhealthy things spiritually, then you're overloading God in you unhealthily. And if you can't take care of the God in you, how could you say you want to take care of God and all the creations and universes of, and the beauty of God if you don't take care of you? If you're not taken care of, you haven't taken care of God, because God placed within you the ability to do whatever you want to do with you as God. So the minute you deplete yourself and you don't give yourself a chance, you don't give God a chance in that way. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? If you don't take care of you, then right away you're not taking care of God. Think about it. So in that way, expanding yourself out and requesting more from God, how could you? You don't even take care of you. It's a thought. I digress. I feel like I wanted to say more, but I don't want to get overly tangential. We're reflecting. We're reflecting on the week. Part of my reflection is, as I've already said, and I was closing the loop here, in that way, I'm always in contact with God. I think you have to focus your light and your energy. They talk about going into the closet to pray, right? You want to go into the darkness and be alone and have quiet time with God. That's important. But I give every second I have to God. That's just where I'm at. Every second I have, I give to God. Every second I have, boom, 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 boom. And I do it in the way I execute, right? God's plan, so to speak. Cool. As I reflect, I can feel good about this. So I may not sit as long as I want. Like, this is more what I would at least prefer at minimum 30 minutes. 20 minutes is decent. But I prioritize when I'm there. I prioritize when I'm there. I prioritize when I'm there. This is what needs to be the heavy sort of investment. And how do I get to 180 hours of content creation? Very easy. I think I wrote about it in here. Maximizing my time. All right. I think I've gotten everything I wanted on my spreadsheet. Let me just again, rough results. I want to get to 700 miles. Right now I'm at 35. If I go for another 7 runs, I got 13 more days to the end of this month. I run at least 3 miles every time I run. Let's say I run out of the 13 days, I run 8. Let's say I run 9. That's 27. 27 to 35 is 62. 62 times 10 is 620. You add another 120. That will put me on a 740-mile pace. So as long as I get between 55 and 60 miles a month, I'm on pace for my 700. That's cool. I wanted to put out 52 episodes. I'm at 10. So when you question, am I really putting in that much out, that much time in content creation? How the fuck else would I get to 10 episodes already in a matter of a month? And this is the 18th, right? Live streams. I said I would do 24. I'm definitely gonna. I talked about that. This is. I've softly committed to 100 days. I hate softly committing to anything. But I have to reflect also, and I thought about this a lot. What is the benefit of what are the results I'm seeing from the live streams? Well, the results I'm seeing from the live streams right now that it makes me feel good. So I like it. So I can do it. Instagram Reels. I said I would create 500. I've created about 25. I'm averaging about 1.5 a day. So in that way, if there's roughly on average 30 days in a month, I'm creating about 45 reels per month. Times 10 is 450. Another 90 is 540. So I'm on pace. I'm on pace. I put up at least 10 stories. I wanted to do 52. I'm on pace. I'm on pace. Knowledge focus. I'm slightly behind. I talked about it, which is why I read for an hour yesterday. I want to read 26 books this year. I've only gotten one done so far. But this is why we reflect, because we got to also make adjustments. It makes no sense to reflect and go through these possibilities and then don't make adjustments. How don't you make adjustments? You got to make an adjustment, dog. Like, what's working? What's working for you? What is working for you? What isn't? Repeat, delete. What works, repeat. What doesn't work, delete it. Work with me. Work with yourself. Or don't. Do whatever you want. It's you who has to live with you, right? That was one of the biggest realizations for me for life. It is you who is stuck with you. It is you who has to live as you. It is you who knows everything about you. And in that way, I was talking to my boy about that the other day. It's part of the reason why I feel so confident in silence. One of it is I know how we talk about the fragility and the emotional fragility of life and the human experience, and how stressful it can get, how overwhelming it can get, and how weak we can get. And so, in that way, you're respectful. That look, I'm very much a finite, flawed human. I accept that, but in that way, I work very hard on myself, so I feel very confident in who I am because I put in the effort. I don't do this shit for. It's not just a pat on the back, like a pat on the back. I don't need no pats on the back. You can fuck off with your pat on the back. That shit is almost insulting to me. You're doing a good job. Go fuck yourself. I'm not here to hear that I'm doing a good job. I'm here to maximize myself. I'm here to love myself. I'm here to execute on myself. And so in that way, a lot of the conversation I have with people, I speak very infrequently now. I just listen. I've learned to love to listen. And one of the things I do when I listen, as I reflect, is I'm checking. I don't need. Sometimes I'm not even hearing the words that are coming out of people's mouths. Although I listen because I want to be respectful of what people are saying. But if you pay attention to what people are saying and the actual energy and what they actually appear to be, because your appearance. This is why I work on I think physical. The physical. What is the word? How you articulate yourself. Languages. Like people are masters with the tongue. Masters with the tongue. I believe I got a gift. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe I have a gift. So some people are really good at curating and crafting and spitting some game where you're like, yo, that person sounds like they're doing their thing. I, you can miss me with that, man. I pay attention to your energy. I pay attention to your body language. I pay attention to your physical essence and presence and aura. Like somebody who doesn't physically take care of themselves, I don't know what I question that. I question that. Back to God gave you an image, and you think it's just like physical because everything got to be something you can visually touch and see. But there is a physical body. I keep referencing my notes. I want to get into that. Hopefully, I don't gas myself out. It's 5:15. How could you be about anything if you don't take care of yourself physically? I don't understand that. That's part of why I believe self-improvement is so important. That's why I believe God is so important. If you just redirect inward, you'll start to say, damn, this is my body. Let's just talk about the core fundamental value of that. Baseline. No body, no life. No physical body, no physical health, no more life. Have you really thought about that? Have you come to the conclusion and realization that if I fuck my body up and it breaks down faster than it needs to, because your body will break down. I talked about the other day the story of Buddha. One of the first things I believe, the exposure, the four lights, I believe it is with Buddha. The first thing that Buddha saw was an old man. And it immediately enlightened him to the fact that everybody's body gets old and breaks down. I read about, man, I hope I say his name right. Cleanthes lived to 100. It was said that watching him break down was was difficult because he was a boxer. He carried water. A lot of what he did, it's about the humility, even after he was getting money and lived frugally enough to take care of himself. Did a lot of manual labor where people would question, yo, you're this great stoic philosopher. You're the right hand of I think it was Xenos, who started all this. Why are you doing that? These menial tasks. There's a reason, right? I believe in it. I believe in the ethic and taking care of life. That's like talk about God. How do you give back and love back on God? Contribute. Contribute to yourself. Make yourself dope. Make yourself the best you could be in all areas of your life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, all those things that allow you to be a skillful human, and then give it away. What greater return to God than that? I digress. Where was I going with all this, man? I forgot where I was going. That's all right. Maybe it'll return to me. Maybe it won't. Let's go back to reflecting. Let's go back to reflecting and where you're at and what you're doing. Buddha exposing himself to God, the body. All right, I think we close the loop on it. People listening. I don't need to speak. I don't need to speak. I can get my point across in absolute silence. I feel very comfortable in silence. I feel very comfortable with my spirit. I feel comfortable with who I am. I feel comfortable with you not liking it. I feel comfortable with you disliking it. I feel comfortable with hate. I feel comfortable with love. I feel comfortable with whatever it is. I'm fully, fully comfortable within myself. Maybe that sounds somewhat arrogant. Maybe it's somewhat unbelievable and you want to doubt it. Okay, that's fine. I get that that comes with it. I'm not here to debate or argue that. What I'm suggesting is as you broaden your prowess around listening, you learn more about people. You learn more about this insatiable desire for people to always be convincing you of who they think they are. But if you watch and pay attention, you see that it doesn't quite align with who they're being. So I don't care what you say. What are you actually doing? Right? What are you actually doing? How are you contributing back? How are you contributing to God? First and foremost, but how you're contributing to yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, do you really care about yourself? I ask these questions. I ask these questions of myself. I wonder if anybody else asks these questions. I can't be the only one asking these questions. Come on now. I'm not that unique. I don't think they're that egregious or outrageous or illogical. I think actually quite the contrary. We how, left to ourselves. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're ignoring yourself. Maybe we ignore ourselves because I don't believe that we could focus on ourselves and give ourselves attention and not question what are we doing to ourselves. What are you doing to you? What are we doing to ourselves? What are you doing to you? What are you doing to you? Because that's everything. And what you are doing to you, then again, also implies what you're not doing to you. And then what you're not doing implies a lot, of course, than what you are doing. And then what you're not doing should simply be, in my opinion, my estimation, my experience, what you're not prioritizing because you're so focused and prioritizing what you are doing. And what you are doing should be all about you. It should be all about your physical, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, you. You. Do you, right? Let's go into some of the notes. Let's go into some of the notes. One of the biggest takeaways for me for the week was I wrote down here. I like to cross things out. Maybe I won't cross them out as I write it. I do that in meetings. I'll have an agenda and it's like, all right, I talked about this, I can let it go. But maybe I'll put a check mark. I feel like I gotta use the bathroom soon. It's kind of emotional stamina. Emotional stamina. I focus on stamina, period. One of the reasons why I do cardio every day, why I believe so deeply in cardio, aside from the heart health, like hello heart, healthy life, is stamina, endurance. I go as crazy with my thoughts as, if I ever had to carry my entire family on my back and run, how far could I get them? And then God forbid the zombie apocalypse. And part of that, you talk about the experiences, the insecurity. If I haven't said it before, I tried to carry my daughter up the steps when I was about 38, 39, overweight, out of shape, and a massive alcoholic. And she was like 80 pounds, 90 pounds. I put her on my back, trying to get up the stairs, 14 steps. I almost dropped her halfway. And that hurt me. That hurt me not being able to do that. I tried to. She was like, "Can you squat with me, Daddy?" And one of the reflex responses was, "I'm getting old." And I said to myself, 38, 39, that's not fucking old. Yo, if you're out there in your 30s, early 40s, 50s, even 60s, talking about, "Oh, I'm old," you don't know what's possible. And I can question, do you love yourself? Do you love yourself? So emotional stamina, as you're putting in the hours and the level of effort, there is an emotional fatigue. And the emotional fatigue is very, very real in that you sense it. You begin to feel almost like you're physically tired, you're emotionally tired. It gets very high, very low, very high, very low, very high, very low, right in between. And that constant play, say you're day 18 into something new, of going up and down like that, it you go through the many, different moods that are available to you, like your identity. You're fucking with your identity. When you start to go on self-improvement journeys, I gotta create an episode about that. I'm thinking of, as I'm flowing here. When you start to fuck around with your identity, that's the coding. That is the chemical and neurological and emotional coding of your body, of your mind, of your spirit, of your essence. When you do that, it has an effect. It has an effect. It's predominantly emotional. So when we start to try to express ourselves in words and we talk about not feeling like doing it, or we're a little bit angry, we're a little bit upset, I don't even know that those words suffice for what you're actually experiencing and going through. I don't even know how to put it into words, except to say that there's emotional stamina that needs to be accrued as you're endeavoring out on this journey for yourself. And the more you physically add, the more it draws on you emotionally in all kinds of ways, which is why the eating is so important. The routine of sleeping and waking up same time is so important. Same time, the routine of thinking less about what you have to do is so important. It's because it has a tax. The tax is emotional. And when you're emotionally taxed, you run the risk of quitting. I don't know how else to say it. When you are emotionally low, you run the risk of crashing out. So one of the things I wrote down, one of the biggest takeaways is as I'm adding to my routine, as I'm adding to my improvement journey, there's an emotional stamina. I believe I have a very strong emotional stamina. But when you add something new, like if you decide to go running from 3 miles to 4 miles, that extra mile, you could do it, but you do it over the course of many days. It's not that it's heavier. It has more of a toll on you. So in that way, there's an emotional stamina that comes with trying to continue to improve on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it breaks you down. Sometimes you crash out. And what I wrote down is, as I'm looking to increase my emotional stamina and not succumb to the stress that comes with it, the pressure of results, the pressure of the results you're looking for starts to become very real. And I'll say it in this way. I wrote a lot down here. I'm starting to get tired. It's 5:30. I do want to, I don't know if I maybe just go for a walk, but I do want to get into my workout. I do want to get into my scripting. A lot of other things I want to do today. Again, I hope you're blessed. I hope this makes this. It's one of the things I learned about doing this. If you don't catch this live, YouTube doesn't push this out. It only, I guess, in that way, maybe only my subscribers will get a notification. Either way, the pressure of results. You talk about what the grind is. The grind really is repeating the same. You start to drive. You talk about emotional. It could drive you crazy. The idea that you're repeating all these processes over and over and over and over and over again that you know are quote unquote the right things to do to move you in a forward direction, that you're repeating the physical requirements, the intellectual requirements, the mental requirements, the emotional requirements to be stable and grow, but that you don't see results, really, that nothing. Imagine same place, same time, all the time, and all you're doing is putting yourself through excruciating pain because the only way to grow is to put yourself through excruciating pain, but nothing's really changing. Eh, That's emotional stamina. That's what it'll do to you. Another thing I wrote down as far as one of the things for reflection is I continue to, you talk about how am I able to find ways, maximizing my time. I got to maximize my time. So in the same way, I'm always thinking about this and I never stop thinking about this. And that's conducive to positivity because I'm always creating and I'd rather be always creating. And like, that's the alternative. If you feel stressed from always creating, the alternative for me is then don't create. And then I'll be stressed from not creating because I'm not doing anything. That to me is also the paradoxical nature of growth. The body. You will either be stressed from tearing your muscles to work out and grow, or you'll be stressed from deteriorating and watching your body become decrepit. You're gonna get old anyway. But sitting there and knowing that you're not physically able to do anything because you lack the stamina, because you lack the strength, because you lack the fortitude, that hurts. That's stressful. That's stressful. Maximizing my time. So I know that generally speaking, from the weekdays, I have from 3:30 to 6:30. Before from 6:30 to 8, I got to get my children ready to get out, do all the making of the beds, packing the lunches, making the breakfast, all those things. That's maximizing my time too. I start work at 9. I have from 8 to 9. What do? I can content create. I can lift. I maximize my time. From 9 to 5, I work. Then generally during the week, I have from 5 to 6:30. At least there's 3 days out of the week, except for the weekends. I have from 5 to 6:30 where I'm getting the house prepared because my wife's not here and I have the children kind of distracted doing other things. I have 90 more minutes. What can I do with those 90 minutes? cook, clean. But in between that, I've also learned to read during that time, do some research. There's 90 more minutes of effectiveness in that way. Then from 6:30 to 8 is a lot of family time. A lot of family time, a lot of going through what we went through for the day, a lot of talking about how we're feeling. Sometimes we argue, sometimes we fight, sometimes we love on ourselves, sometimes we express ourselves in a way that makes us feel abundant and joyful and grateful. That's the realities of the relationships of married life with children. But then from I have to generally from 6:30 to 8. Then from 8 to 9, I leave myself wide open. Sometimes my son comes to me, he wants to do some things. Sometimes my wife wants to talk a little bit longer, my daughter, whatever. But from 8 to 9, generally, I have another hour where I spoke about it before. I usually am able to go back into content creation mode and maximize my time. So if you think 8 hours of work, if from 6:30 to 8 is fully focused family time, that's 90 minutes there. From 6:30 in the morning, that's odd. Think about how that's working for me. 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m., I'm with my children because I'm getting them ready. I'm making them breakfast. We're talking. We're getting bags packed. We're getting them out to school. I'm driving them to school and all that stuff. 6:30 to 8, we're also winding down and having dinner together and cleaning up the kitchen and putting away the dishes and all that other good shit. It's funny how that works. Then I have from 8 to 9. 3:30 to 6:30 is 3 hours. 8 to 9 is 4 hours. My lunch break is 5 hours. 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock again. I have 6 hours throughout the day where I can fully focus on me and self-improvement in some way. That's maximizing my time. That creates emotional stress. It requires a lot of stamina, a lot of focus, discipline, consistency, commitment. I'm not going to tell you it isn't hard, but the alternative is to do nothing, and that is equally hard because the results of nothing are nothing. Nothing produces more nothingness. If you haven't figured that out already, I don't know what else to tell you. And the emotional experience of nothingness as God is not healthy to me in a way that produces love. That doesn't produce love. That to me is an entirely different spectrum of emotion. So that's maximizing time. I sort of talked about, maybe I'll leave this for tomorrow. I do this for me. The belief in me. I'm gonna leave this for tomorrow. I want to box this out and leave this for tomorrow. Relationships and work. I want to leave this to me. Visualization. We're gonna talk about visualization again tomorrow because I went over some content. The Blue Angels, Navy SEALs, they do some pretty cool visualization techniques. They talk about Olympic athletes and what they do for visualization techniques. I know we talk about manifestation, and a lot of what I do try to help me with visualization, which maybe I'll get into in a little more deeper detail tomorrow, is I watch videos about money just flowing so I can visualize money just hitting me in the face. Money just coming all the time. Money, 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 money. I like money. Why not? If you want money, you want to visualize money, you got to be able to practice visualizing money. You should watch some things that show just money, right? I think reflection wouldn't be as helpful as it can be. I'm going to just put some checks here. Without, what I would say is, if I could take something back, but you can't take it back. I don't really want to take it back. But what were the most unpleasurable things that happened to you this week? What were the things that you would delete that you wouldn't want to repeat because they didn't work? I say this in a way that, man, if you could understand where I've come from and how my wife and I have been able, and my children and I, and my family life has evolved. I wrote down one of the biggest thing I wish I could take back, the biggest take back, too many arguments this week. Too many arguments this week. And I'm not talking about conflict, disagreements. Like, I say left, you say right, I say up, you say down, I say green, you say blue. Sometimes there's a healthiness to that. I don't know that there's any relationship that is fruitful to the maximum capacity of its fruit, bearing the fruit, that doesn't have conflict. It's the same way that when you plant the seed, it has to go through its seasons. You can't just plant the seed and say, I'm only going to give it heat. I'm only going to give it light. It's only going to go through the summer. You go through the summer. You go through the fall, the winter, the spring. There's a way to optimize it. There's a lot that goes into it. You got to water it. You got to nurture it. I wrote something to the effect yesterday on the community tab about the power of nurturing and going through the seasons. And the fact that seasons are habitual and tactically you can use this to your advantage because we're all just rhythms and patterns. Because I'm careful with my rhythms and patterns, I believe whatever you do and repeat consistently just becomes the pattern you repeat consistently. Whether you're conscious of it or not, the more you get into a state of arguing and debating and conflict, you repeat that over and over and over, you'll start to crave conflict and arguing and constant debates, right? You think, one of the things I read about, I watched about to sum it up in a way that kind of makes it succinct. We get into the idea that let's practice visualization because you're not practicing visualization. No, the reality is you've practiced a specific visualization to the point where you can do it unconsciously and subconsciously. You visualize, you just don't realize it. You forgot what you visualized. The same way, if you argue every day with your wife, you don't have to think about it. You just argue every day with your wife. It becomes a rhythm and a pattern and a habit. If you, excuse me. Okay. My point to all that is this. I rolled over my son's jacket. Such a nice jacket. He just fucking throws that shit. I used to be like that, throwing things. I still kind of sometimes throw things everywhere. My closet. You go in my closet. My closet is sometimes in shambles. In any event, you're practicing you and who you are every day, and the reality is your body. I talk about this all the time. Your mind and your body and your spirit likes rhythms and patterns. If you hit snooze every day, you hit snooze every day. That's your pattern. If you stay like man, there was a stat that 20%, I believe it's specific to Americans, 20% are sedentary. You don't really move, or you get the minimum amount of movement per day. And sometimes the minimum amount of movement per day is just making sure that you eat, making sure that you brush your teeth, and then you're right back in the room and in the bed or in your chair or on the couch. Think about that. That you could be sedentary, that you could not move with your body and your life. That becomes something you become accustomed to. The same way if you come home every day and argue with your wife or your husband or your spouse or your significant other, you will do that repeatedly. And my wife and I certainly were in a rhythm and a pattern like that for a while, which is not healthy. It's just not healthy. So when we do it so infrequently now that when it happens, it strikes me. I'm like, no, we can't, because I don't want that rhythm and that pattern. I don't want that rhythm and the pattern. And this week, and I believe a lot of it was due to my emotional stamina and the fact that I continue to layer on this pressure to myself, which is okay. I'm not complaining about it. I just know that I have to grow through this. The emotional fatigue, like yesterday, I even expressed to her, I said, my tolerance for patience is minimum. And I know when my tolerance for patience is minimum, I can pray as much as I want. I can breathe and go through techniques as much as I want. I still haven't mastered it. Or the realization is you're just not always gonna. It's just not always gonna go exactly how you practiced it. Sometimes you fail, and maybe that's important because it helps you realize again the beauty of what you do have. Like if it's always perfect, you forget how great it is. So I am able to reflect and say we had a few more, which I think we argued like twice this week, which is, and the arguments they weren't crazy, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So today, one of the things I have to do for on my agenda for today is I'm going to make it a point that when we're having breakfast or doing something today that we sit down and we just talk a little more amicably and I express remorse and sorrow for crashing out a little bit the way I did, and accept my responsibility and have accountability for those events, because I don't want to I don't want to repeat those. Doesn't make me happy. Doesn't make me feel loved. It's not where I want to be. I don't know that anyone has a relationship that can bear any fruit when you're constantly in conflict. Debate all you want because you learn about each other and you learn how to do things, but have closure and conclusion. An argument where people are just heightened emotionally and are expressing themselves in ways that are volatile, I don't. It never works, in my opinion, my experience. It never works. And so, in that way, I'm not happy that we crashed out. I crashed out a couple of times, and I want to fix that, so I will. The biggest take back is that the biggest, smile I guess on my face. The biggest gift I got was this T-shirt. And think about it. I can go through a week where my wife surprised me with this because she wanted to express love, but at the same time, we had a couple of arguments where I want to take that back. That's life. That's life. But the process of reflecting, ooh, I don't know if you can hear it on the mic, but a lot of my body parts just cracked, and that feels good. I'm also stretching because not only because it feels good, I'm so sore, but I know that I'm about to go get busy. I'm about to go get busy. So, you know, start to get the adrenaline pumping. You start to get your mindset right. About to move my body and do some things. What are the gifts you're receiving? You know, there's things like this, but also the reality that you're alive. That's a gift. I'd much rather be alive than not, wouldn't you? No, I would. And so, in that way, the gift of life, the reflection I have for this week is very similar to the reflection I have of every week, which is if I repeat this week, even with the things I would want to take away, even with the drawbacks, even with the pain, even with the suffering, even with some of the instabilities around the emotions, even with the difficulties and the struggles and the questioning and the doubts, I'm good with repeating this week again. I'm good with doing next week exactly what I did this week. I'm good with closing this week strong, the way I believe I've had a very, very strong cumulative week. That's why we reflect. That's why we track. That's why we really measure to ensure that if you want to improve, the greatest way to improve, because you're going to repeat your patterns and habits over and over anyway, why would you want to repeat patterns and habits that aren't conducive to positive growth, that aren't conducive to challenging yourself, that aren't conducive to excelling because you've gone through an experience of struggle, pain, sacrifice? Either way, you're going through pain, struggle, and sacrifice. Every blessed day you are given, there's also a blessed day that is taken. The sacrifice to live life is the sacrifice towards your ultimate end. And the experience in and around and in between that is everything to how you feel. And why would you not want to feel about your life in the greatest possible sense that you could feel about your life? I don't understand it. I can't fathom it. I wouldn't want to live it any other way. In that way, are you in a process, a repeatable process that is inclusive of all the things we talked about for the sake of your growth, for the sake of the God in you, for the sake of the positive impact you can have on yourself, which in turn has a positive impact on the world around you? A changed you, I keep saying it, is a changed world. A changed world is a changed you. A lot of what we experience collectively as people, I believe, will rid itself once you take care of you. If you're taken care of and everybody's taken care of in the way that they want to be taken care of, because you have full control of how you take care of yourself, then we'll have less pain, less struggle, less animosity, less friction, because we know we're good. There's nothing you can really say or do to affect me because I affect me. And if we all are in that mode, we can all have the humility and the grace to ensure that my stomach just growled. I wonder if that came out on the mic. I'm going to listen to that. If we can have the grace to take care of ourselves, which means we're taking care of God, and we can give back to God by ensuring that the taken care of version of us permeates and oozes and flows everywhere we go. And we thereby create a community, an environment of loved selves, which allows us to love each other because we know we love God and God is all. And if we take that everywhere we go, how can we fight? Why are you fighting God? You can't be selfish. If you're caught up in friction and fault and drama and negativity emotionally, everyone is. And maybe you can be a light for somebody as opposed to knowing you're in the dark and trying to bring somebody in there with you. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Think about it. And as always, life is beautiful to live, man. Wherever you're at, reflect on it. Repeat what needs to be repeated to keep you successful. Delete what needs to be deleted to keep you successful. Have a great life. However you life. Right? Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.